Welcome back to Arise Exchange. The riots in Baltimore may have been sparked by the death of a black man while in police custody, but many say the city has been living on the edge for some time. For example, unemployment is more than 8%, among the highest in the nation. Joining us now by phone is John Morris. He is Dean of Urban Planning and Community Development at Sojourner Douglas College in Baltimore. John, welcome to Arise Exchange. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be with you.
What is driving Baltimore's unemployment rate? This seems to be a city that has never really recovered from the loss of its industry.
I think that's precisely what the problem is. Something to think about is that I think Baltimore is a blue-collar town and historically has been. The world changed with the moving of various industries out of the United States, certainly out of the cities, initially to the south and then to parts of the third world. And Baltimore has been victimized by that. And it happened really at the worst of all possible times. Something to think about, and I think it's hard to get your mind around, is that 60 years ago, if you looked at the rate of employment, the percentage of black men, adult men who were employed in Baltimore City, 60 years ago, the number was just under 70%. That number today is barely touching 40%. And this is in the aftermath of the end of segregation, the Civil Rights Act, and all sorts of opportunities. So there's something going on in Baltimore that's dampening down opportunities.
Well, let me ask you about opportunities, because other cities have had this problem with a change in industries. Look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was a polluted mess from the steel mills. It has revolutionized itself. Cleveland has turned itself around. What needs to be done in Maryland and in Baltimore to fix this situation? Because it's the biggest city in the state.
Yeah. Baltimore probably is one of the biggest cities on the East Coast with the largest proportional black population. I think the difficulty is the inability to look at that population and see promise and possibility as opposed to problems and all sorts of pathologies. I think what many of the cities that have succeeded in overcoming the deindustrialization have been able to do is to see possibilities that they would not have imagined maybe years before. Baltimore's still stuck in a past in which it can't get beyond the bad stereotypes that it's lived with. So, I mean, in many ways, while The Wire has been notorious for Baltimore, Baltimore can get beyond it.
Yeah, well, how do you create those opportunities then? I mean, what steps have to be taken in place to look at the population? And I know they have a big education problem, for example, in Baltimore.
Well, education certainly is a problem, but the reality was when you look at what Baltimore looked like, I could keep going back to 60 years ago, it doesn't look that much different from what Baltimore looks like today demographically, but those people 60 years ago spawned what was perhaps the greatest middle-class revolution that Baltimore had ever seen. The difference is that those people were able to be engaged economically, and while times have changed, you have to rethink how you engage people who have minimal skills, but all the want to in the world to make a living. And what's happened over the last 60 years, last 40 years in particular, is that people have been, in their despair, persuaded, maybe just beat down, that the possibility of prosperity for them is a joke.
Okay. John Morris, Dean of Urban Planning and Community Development at Sojourner Douglas College. Thank you so much. We're going to have you back on soon to talk about this more.
Okay.